We have with us Jason Morgan, Vice President of the new Canada-Portugal Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to be formally launched on March 27 at the Consulate General of Portugal in Montreal. Thank you, Jason, for joining us today. So, what exactly is this organization?
So the goal of the Portuguese-Canadian Chamber of Commerce and Industry is to help foster economic and trade relations between Canada and Portugal. Under the current environment of trade relations worldwide, especially with the U.S. and Canada and the U.S. and Portugal, I think we believe the time is best than any other time to foster further trade and increase more relations between the countries of Portugal and Canada.
Mm-hmm. So was it created as a response to the trade tensions between Canada and the US, or was it planned before these tensions escalated?
No, it was planned before. We've been working on this for well over a year now to restart this chamber. The one on the Portuguese side, the Canadian-Portuguese Chamber in Portugal, was launched last year. However, we feel that under the current environment, we're trying to push for an accelerated timeline, because we believe that this chamber can fill in a void now more than any other time.
Mm-hmm. And you talked about the chamber, your sister chamber in Portugal. How will this chamber, this new chamber, differ from other existing organizations, including that one?
Well, we plan on working hand in hand with the sister chamber, which is Lisbon-based, as well as working with ICEP, to increase the amount of two-way trade between Canada and Portugal, which right now already totals 3.7 billion. It's really a long-term project, but we really plan on helping develop trade missions coming to Canada and as well as going to Portugal, and helping businesses that want to grow their business across the Atlantic between the two countries, and facilitate that by interacting with the right stakeholders and allowing them to have easier opportunities to grow.
Okay. And how can these businesses reach you? Will you have a physical headquarters for now, or is there another way?
Yes. Well, for now, you can go to the website, which is portugal-canada.com, as well as we have the launch event on March 27th here in Montreal. And then I believe we will also have events in Toronto and Vancouver later this year. So I believe Toronto might be around sometime in April, and then Vancouver coming further along in the year. So the goal is to really have representation across the entire province, across the country, and to help develop that. So like I said, Portugal-Canada.ca is the website that for now people can go if they want to join the chamber, interact with us. And if not, then people are welcome to also join the events we're going to have in the three major cities and become members of the chamber and help us grow.
You talked about events on three major cities. Could you walk us through with more detail?
Yes, of course. So in Montreal, it's going to be the first launch event on March 27th at the General Consulate here of Portugal here in Montreal. And then we're going to have further events in Toronto as well as in Vancouver. I believe the event in Toronto that they are looking at is going to be probably sometime in April. And then I believe the one in Vancouver, we're looking at a date a little more around June. I think it might line up a little bit with the Web Summit that's going to be in Vancouver, because I'm sure, as you know, Web Summit in Lisbon is also one of the major events that they host over there every year.
And do people need to register prior to the event?
Yes, so they can contact us through the website at portugal-canada.ca. We'll also have all the social media platforms that will be launched in time for the event later this month. And we'll be happy to reach out to them to help sign them up for these events. Obviously, they are the first event, so they're going to be a little more cozy, but we'll have the ambassador joining, the general consul, ICEP will be there, we'll invite all the major businesses that interact on both sides of the Atlantic. And then moving forward, well, we're hoping to have larger and larger events in the future to try and bring in a larger group of people to interact with the chamber.
Mhm. You said before that Canada is looking for trade diversification because of the recent tensions with the US and Donald Trump. Bearing this in mind, do you anticipate any governmental support or incentives for businesses expanding into Portugal?
I believe that there is a will and a desire to help foster relationships between Europe and Canada. We already have the free trade agreement, as well as a fair amount of trade on both sides. But there are small things such as Halifax and Sines are only 4,400 kilometers apart, which makes it one of the major European ports closest to Halifax compared with other countries. And I believe that with time, by interacting more with the stakeholders, by interacting more with the governments, hopefully we'll be able to grow this relationship moving forward as Canada and Portugal, and by proximity, all of Europe, are natural trade partners. And I think that with the times that we are in right now, it is the best time to help foster that relationship.
Mhm. So the PR and you also just said that Portugal is a natural gateway for Canadian goods and services into Europe. What specific advantages does Portugal offer comparing to other EU countries?
I think the proximity, as I mentioned, is one of the major factors. There is no border, there are no other countries between us, it is just the Atlantic Ocean. And so naturally, when it comes to maritime trade, Canada and Portugal will be able to deliver goods to each other in a much easier way than a lot of other countries might be able to do so. And you also have a fairly large population of Portuguese descendants, both in Montreal, Toronto, and other areas in Canada. And as well, a lot of Canadians, more than any other moment in my memory, are traveling to Portugal, building relationships over there. So I think that it is a natural relationship that makes it a lot easier to develop trade. And I think there's a big desire from the population to grow that relationship between the two countries.
Just out of curiosity, are you a Portuguese descendant?
I personally am not. However, my partner is Portuguese, and the company that I represent and work for, Mercan, are one of the largest investors in Portugal. So we've developed over 30 hotels in Portugal, and we have a strong ambition to grow that relationship ourselves. We've seen the potential of Portugal. It's why we've set up offices there. We have over 600 employees in Portugal alone. And we saw the benefit of growing this business relationship.
Mm-hmm. So you talked about hotels. I would like to talk also about other sectors and industries. So what specific sectors and industries do you see benefiting the most from this new chamber?
I think some of the largest areas where we currently have trade and development is around the areas of aerospace, agriculture. You have as well development in tourism, specifically when it comes to agriculture, when it comes to aerospace, when it comes to development. There are many Portuguese companies that are also quite involved on the Canadian side. I know Sonai has a huge investment in Quebec, for example. The airlines all want to grow the back and forth trade that they have. There's a lot of room there, even to become hubs onto other European and North American cities. There's already, 3 or 4 major airlines that do the back and forth between our countries. And then I think really the sky is the limit into how much our two countries can collaborate and grow trade. And I think that's where, as a chamber, we want to grow our member base at first. And then we want to see where people would like to see us commit a little more resources, where they'll need more support on whether it's understanding the regulations and establishing yourself across the Atlantic, or whether it's just having support and interacting with the right financing, the right interactions, government support. And I think that's where, as a chamber, we can come in and not, we're not here to replace any other of the institutions that are in place. We're here to work with them and help facilitate that and bring it to the everyday businessman and entrepreneur. One thing that we've heard a lot is Portugal has had almost a culture change, and entrepreneurship is on the rise between the young population in Portugal. And they want to try and develop new things and reach new markets. And we would like nothing more than to help make that a reality.
You know that Portugal is going through a political crisis. Do you think that this might impact somehow these commercial relationships?
No, I don't believe so. I believe, listen, both of our countries are about to have an election in the near
Yeah,
future.
Canada also, of course.
Yeah. And, politics is just the nature of things. We're not a political organization. We're here, regardless of which government is in place on both sides. I think there's still an ingrained desire to grow the trade relationship between the two countries. And we're here to work with whoever is in place and whoever moves forward to help make that a real reality.
Do you see other barriers between Canada and Portugal that could impact trade? And if yes, how do you plan to address them?
I think when you're starting new markets, when you're starting new trade relationships, what's most important is to break habits, to get logistics going in a way that normally they weren't doing before. Obviously, Canadians tended to feel it was easier to export to the United States, where you could just put products on a truck and cross the border. And obviously, crossing the Atlantic seemed like a larger endeavor. But I think that as time goes by, as you see the benefits of diversifying trade, and as we see the desire on both sides to try and make that a reality, I think that's probably the hurdles we're going to try and address first, is to try and get the logistics to make it easier to make that trade. And that really requires the relationships. And that's where a trade missions, making events, putting people in touch with each other, really finding these areas where there might be a little more resistance and seeing what, as a chamber and organizations that we work with, what we can do to help break down those barriers and make it easier.
Finally, what message do you have for Canadian and Portuguese businesses that are hesitant to explore these new trade opportunities?
I would say that you should get outside the mold. We're here to help. We think that this is a natural partnership and a relationship that's going to grow with time. So by all means, come to our website, come to our events, talk with us. Let us know why you might have any doubts, and we're more than happy to work with you to address them, because I think that the future will continue to evolve. Trade relationships always need to move forward with them. And this is something that we all strongly believe has a very positive future.
Jason, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Teresa.